I should have known something was wrong when Jake stopped singing along. We'd been going to Camp Wildwood for 3 summers straight. Me, Jake, Sarah, and Tommy. It wasn't anything fancy, just a patch of state forest up north where you could pitch a tent for $20 a night. No cell service, no bathroom facilities, just you and the woods for miles in every direction. We loved it. This was supposed to be our last trip before college scattered us across the country. Sarah had gotten into some fancy school in California, Tommy was heading to trade school, and Jake and I were staying local but figured things would never be quite the same. So we'd planned this final weekend, packed our usual supplies, and driven the 4 hours to our favorite spot beside Crystal Lake. The first night went perfectly. We'd set up camp in our usual clearing, about 50 yards back from the water. Sarah had brought her guitar like always, and after we'd gotten a good fire going, she started playing the songs we'd been singing together for years. Country Roads, Sweet Caroline, all the classics that sound better when you're slightly off key and surrounded by friends. That's when I first heard it. Just as Sarah finished the chorus of Country Roads, I swear I heard someone else singing the last line from somewhere in the trees behind us. The voice was faint, maybe carried on the wind, but it was definitely there. I looked around at the others, but they were already launching into the next verse, laughing at Tommy's attempt at harmonizing. "Did you guys hear that?" I asked during a break between songs. "Hear what?" Sarah adjusted her grip on the guitar neck. "Someone's singing. From the woods." Laughed Jake. "Probably just an echo off the lake, man. Sound does weird things out here." I nodded, but I wasn't convinced. The voice had sounded too clear, too deliberate to be an echo. Still, I didn't want to kill the mood, so I let it go. The second night, it happened again. We were sitting around the fire, and Sarah had just finished playing Puff the Magic Dragon, a song that always made us feel like kids again, even though we were all 18. As the last chord faded, I heard it again, a voice from the darkness singing the final line word for word. This time Jake heard it too. He sat up straighter, his head tilted toward the trees. "What was that?" "I told you guys yesterday, there's someone out there." "It's probably just another campsite," Sarah said, though she sounded less certain than the night before. Sound carries weird in the forest. We sat in silence for a moment, listening. The usual night sounds surrounded us: crickets, the distant hoot of an owl, wind rustling through leaves. But no voices, no other campers. Tommy grabbed a flashlight and swept it across the tree line. The beam illuminated nothing but trunks and undergrowth, shadows dancing as Delight moved. "Maybe we should check the camp registry when we head out, see if there are other people nearby." But I had already seen the registry when we signed in. We were the only ones registered for this section of the forest. The third night changed everything. Sarah had just started playing House of the Rising Sun, a newer addition to our Campfire repertoire that she'd been practicing all summer. She was only halfway through the first verse when the voice joined in. This time, it wasn't singing the words we'd already finished. It was harmonizing with Sarah in real time, note for note, word for word. The voice came from multiple directions now, as if whatever was out there had moved around our camp while singing. Sarah's fingers froze on the strings. The guitar fell silent, but the voice in the woods continued singing for another few seconds before it, too, stopped. The silence that followed felt suffocating. "That's not an echo," Tommy whispered. Jake stood up so fast he knocked over his camp chair. "We need to leave right now." "Don't be ridiculous," Sarah said, but her voice was shaking. "It's probably just what?" Jake's voice cracked. "Just some psycho who's been watching us for 3 days? Learning our songs?" I wanted to argue, but the fear in Jake's voice matched what I was feeling. This wasn't some innocent camper at a distant site. This was something else. Something that had been observing us, studying us. "Let's just pack up in the morning," I said, trying to be the voice of reason. "We'll leave first thing." But as I said it, the voice started up again. This time it wasn't singing. It was talking, repeating our conversation back to us in a voice that sounded almost like mine, but not quite right. "Let's just pack up in the morning. We'll leave first thing." Then it repeated Sarah's words. "It's probably just..." Then Tommy's. That's not an echo. Each phrase came from a different spot in the darkness, as if multiple people were positioned around our camp, throwing our own words back at us. Jake grabbed the biggest flashlight we had and started walking toward the trees. "Show yourself," he shouted. "What do you want?" I caught his arm. "Don't. Just don't." But it was too late. The voice responded, using Jake's own words. "Show yourself. What do you want?" But this time, it wasn't coming from the woods. It was coming from behind us, from the direction of our tents. We spun around, flashlight beams cutting through the darkness. Nothing. But as we stood there, breathing hard and trying to make sense of what was happening, we heard it again, singing. It was Country Roads, the first song Sarah had played 3 nights ago. But now there were 4 voices singing it, each one slightly different, each one an imperfect copy of one of ours. My voice, Jake's voice, Sarah's voice, Tommy's voice, all singing together from somewhere in the darkness beyond our fire's reach. The harmony was beautiful and terrifying. We didn't sleep that night. We sat back to back around the dying fire, flashlights in hand, listening to our own voices singing our favorite songs back to us from the woods. Sometimes the singing would stop, and we hear our conversations from earlier in the weekend being replayed. Discussions about college, inside jokes, even private moments when we thought no one else was listening. When dawn finally came, we packed our gear in record time. Nobody talked about what had happened. We just wanted to get out of there. It wasn't until we were loading the car that I realized Jake hadn't said a word all morning. He'd helped pack, nodded when we asked him questions, but he hadn't actually spoken since the night before. "You okay, man?" I asked him as we secured the tent to the roof rack. He looked at me, opened his mouth as if to speak, then closed it again. He tried a second time, and when words finally came out, they weren't in his voice. They were in mine. "You okay, man?" he said, using my exact intonation, my exact tone. That was 6 months ago. We never talked about what happened at Camp Wildwood, not once. Sarah and Tommy went off to their schools, and Jake and I started at the local community college. Everything seemed normal, except Jake never speaks in his own voice anymore. At first, I thought maybe I was imagining it, but over time, I've realized that every word Jake says is something one of us said during those 3 days in the woods. He speaks using our voices, our inflections, our words, like he's some kind of recording device playing back conversations from that weekend. The others don't seem to notice. When Jake talks, they respond normally, as if nothing's wrong. But I hear it. I hear Sarah's voice coming out of his mouth when he orders coffee. I hear Tommy's laugh when Jake thinks something's funny. I hear my own voice when he's trying to be serious. And sometimes, late at night, when I'm trying to fall asleep, I swear I can hear singing outside my window. 4 voices harmonizing to songs we used to sing around the campfire, getting more perfect each time. I think something came back with us from those woods. Something that's still learning, still copying, still watching. And I'm starting to wonder if Jake is the only one it took. Have you ever noticed yourself saying things you don't remember deciding to say?